All the guys are going, no. Go for it, Jeff.
All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to gather here to learn more about you and learn how to grow our faith, Lord. Thank you for this week. Many of us have a graduation or seeing people graduate, and thank you for just allowing us to get to that part of our lives. Please protect us as we go throughout the week. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Jackson. All right, so this year, what are we studying? Personal faith. Does that mean your parents' faith?
No.
It means whose faith? Your faith. All right. Well, so we're continuing the series of interviewing some members of the church, talking with them, getting their story. So tonight we have Mr. Jeff Arvin. Everybody say hi.
I'm old. It's a long story.
Well, so Jeff, let's start with this. How did you become a Christian?
Well, the same way most of us did. My my father was an elder. My parents were both Christians. Everybody in my family was a Christian, and I grew up in the church. I was baptized. I was about 12. It was right before we moved to Moore, and I was about 12 years old when I was baptized. But I really probably didn't become a Christian till I was about 18. My dad died when I was 15. So he died 8 days before I turned 16. So when my dad died, I had up till that time I had probably kind of depended on him for my faith, almost like, hey, my dad's an elder. Surely I'm going to make it, I knew my Bible. I was, I'd studied. I was a good Bible student. So I knew what the Bible said, and I was able to argue with the Jehovah's Witnesses when they knocked on the door, all the fun stuff that we used to do back in the 70s and 80s. So I was able to do all that. But after my dad died, and I was probably just out of high school, at that point, I kind of started wondering why I believed what I believed. I knew what I believed, but I didn't really know why. And that really got me digging more into my Bible as to what it said, what it meant, how it applied. So that's probably when I really, really became the Christian that I needed to be was after that point when I had nobody to lean on, and at that point, you realize that, I'm going to have to answer for Jeff. I don't have to answer for anybody else, and nobody else can answer for me, So that's really when I became more committed, I guess I would say, as a Christian.
So you say you grew up in the church.
I did.
So there are many of us that we grew up in the church. We were there every time the doors were open.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you realize that just showing up to church is not enough to make me a Christian?
Well, at some point your faith is going to be challenged, Like I said, my dad died, I was right before I was 16. I was 15 years old, and he was, he was 50 years old, which I know it doesn't seim like now, but 50 is young. I mean, that is young to be dying. And I can remember watching TV, and you see these really old guys on TV, and you know that these really old guys on TV had 4 wives and were sleeping with somebody that wasn't their wife now, and they were alcoholics, and they were doing that. And I'm watching these old guys, and I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense that a guy that was as good as my dad dies at 50, mm-hmm. and these old guys get to live to be 85 years old. And so those challenges come along, those things that challenge your faith, those things that make you ask God, okay, help me understand this, And that was the first one. That was the first time. Now, like I said, I'm, at this point I'm 60. So I've had a few of those in my, in my life that you come along and you're like, okay, why is this happening? And help me understand why this is happening. But that was the first one.
So, as a teenager, encountering something as big and as challenging as the loss of a parent, did you blame God?
No, I never did blame God. You play all kinds of mental tricks with yourself, when bad things like that happen, at one, I'd kind of, one of the mental tricks that I kind of played was that, God takes the good young,
Yeah.
God took him because he didn't want him to have to stay here and suffer, so it took him before all the suffer, the bad stuff. So you play these mental tricks, but I never did blame God. My father had given me a good enough understanding of my faith and the way things happened that I never really did that.
Good.
And I had a great circle of people around me. All of my family are Christians. The guys that I hung around with were all Christians. So I had a good circle around me. So that was one thing that I know a lot of people have done that, but I never did blame God.
Do you think that circle of friends was vital at that point? Was it?
Oh yeah. I I've got I say friend. It was a guy I played ball with. I was a basketball player, baseball player, and all that when I was in high school. And one of the guys that I played basketball with, his dad died about the same time mine did. And from that point forward, he was involved with drugs, with drinking, we had both been starters on the basketball team, in 8th and 9th grade. And then when we were sophomores, he didn't even come out for basketball, And the reason he didn't come out for basketball is because drugs were more important to him than basketball was. So I often look at that guy. He's since passed away. He's no longer with us. He was not a bad guy, not a bad guy, but I'd often look at him and think, man, how easy it could have been. I mean, that could have been me,
Yeah.
or my little brother, and so that circle of friends that I had, that group, and not just friends my own age, everybody in here, you guys know Rick and Jean Corley? Well, my dad dies in October. And we go, and my mom at the time was really not working. I mean, she was a part-time librarian.
It wasn't common
at Highland West. So, and my dad had a illness where he couldn't have life insurance, so we had no money.
Yeah.
And now later she got a much better job and those types of things. But at the time we really had nothing. So summertime rolls around, and I fancy myself as the greatest basketball player on earth at the time. And I needed to go to camp, but we couldn't afford camp. So Rick Corley sent me to camp. Rick paid for my camp, took me, took care of me. So it wasn't just the guys my age. It was really all of us, which I'll tell you, everybody in this congregation, the ones you don't even know, are looking at you guys as their little brothers and sisters. I mean, they really are. They're ready. They're ready to protect you. They're ready to help you. They're ready because that's what they did for me, and I know exactly how they feel. And so that was a big part of it too. Was the older people, the ones that were closer to my mom and dad's age, that kind of stepped in and helped too. Helped my mom with two. My brother and I were not easy.
Can't imagine.
We were good boys, but we weren't easy. So they helped with that too. But it's very important.
As you've gotten older,
Mm-hmm.
and you look back at these men and women that impacted you when you were younger, how has that changed you as an adult? When you see younger Christians,
Well, I mean, it obviously makes you more cognizant of some of the things that they go through. You know, the older you get, the more you forget how hard it was to be a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, you have a tendency to think back, you know, glowingly on your youth and how great it was, and you sometimes forget, man, that was hard. I mean, it really was. It was hard being a teenager, and it's hard enough with both your parents, you know. And when you lose one, it's really hard, you know. And you really have to depend on the people that love you and the people that are around you, and you have to remind yourself that those people love me. I mean, they're my family too. You have to remind yourself of that. But yeah, it's helped me in that way, you know. You know, just some of the things that we've done around here, you know, have helped, and it, you know, of course, I did a lot more when I was younger in much better shape, you
Yeah.
know, as far as those kind of things.
I feel that.
But that's what it's helped me with the most, is just kind of the understanding and the judgmental aspect that's so easy to develop, you know, and that doesn't get easier as you get older. I mean, it really doesn't. You have to fight that your whole life, of not being, you know, not being too hard on people, and not, you know, not being judgmental on what they're going through, and realizing that even though I think what you're going through is easy, to you it's not. You know,
I mean, they've got Google in
you know,
school.
it's,
We didn't have
you
that.
know, but I mean, you know, as you go through life, you know, you look at problems that young people are having, and you're like, what I wouldn't give to have those problems again, you know. But when you're going through them, they're devastating problems, and I think that going through what I did helped me with that.
So you got older.
I did get older.
Did you go to college?
I did go to college. I played basketball at Rose State, back when they had a basketball team, which was a long time ago. But anyway, I played basketball there. I I actually had some scholarship offers, going into my senior year. In October of my senior year, I turned my ankle, you know, to the point, you know, it wasn't just like a turned ankle. I was in a cast for, you know, I tore all the ligaments, and it was nasty. So those scholarships kind of went away. So I went to Rose, and just went to school for a year, and then the basketball coach saw me, and came up and, you know, asked me if I, you know, who I was, and I told him who I was, and he knew who I was. So he talked me into coming out and playing basketball. So I played basketball there for 2 years. And then I went to Central State, or UCO, and going to play basketball there. And our very first scrimmage, we were scrimmaging Southwestern University, and out in Weatherford. And so we were scrimmaging them, and I went up for a dunk, and a guy cut my legs out from under me, and so I remember being in the air like this, and falling straight down on my back, and as I was laying there, I thought, you know, nobody's paying me to do this, and I'm not going to make a living doing it. You know, as much as I'd like to think I was great, I'm not. You know, you're not going to play in the NBA, and I had been in 3 casts in 2 years, and so that was kind of the end of my basketball career, my competitive basketball career, as I was laying on the floor in pain. So
It was God sending you a sign that maybe.
the Lord has to sometimes hurt people that
Yeah.
are too stupid to listen to him, you know. So that's what I did. I went to there. Now, and while I was at Rose, there was actually a guy that church member who was the chief financial officer at a bank in Midwest City,
Okay.
and he was, you know, what was it, Morton, Jim and Faye Morton, and we'd actually known them when we lived in Stillwater. Jim and Faye were about the age of my older sister, so Jim knew that I was playing basketball in Midwest City and all that. So Jim contacted me about a summer job. And so I went to work at the bank during the summers. And then I was going to be a English teacher and a basketball coach. That was my plan. And when I finished up, I realized that in order to go teach English and coach basketball, I was going to take about a $10,000 a year pay cut from working at the bank. So I stayed on at the bank, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So it was.
So what'd you get your degree in?
English.
English.
I was going to be an English
Translates
teacher.
right into
yeah.
bank. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you guys this. This is a fact. If you don't remember anything else, remember that no matter what you do in life, the most important things that you need to learn how to do are communicate,
Yes.
either verbally, on paper, being able to read. But if you can't communicate, if you can effectively communicate, you can have almost any job you want. And it really doesn't matter what your degree's in. If you can effectively communicate, you can do almost anything you want.
Agree with that.
So that was where that ability came in.
So how long have you been in banking?
35 years.
So it's been good to you.
It's been good to me.
All right.
It's taken care of me.
All right.
It's fed me for a long time.
So what's your current position?
I am the vice president. I'm a commercial lender and a business development officer at FNB Community Bank here in Moore.
Okay. So what's involved with being a vice president of a bank?
Well, I was the manager of the branch here for 14 years. So really it's everything. You know, you're supervising tellers, you're opening accounts, you're making loans, you're doing all the business development, you're going to all the meetings in town. So I was successfully able to pawn off the daily management to the guy that was my assistant. So he's the manager now. So really all I'm doing is trying to find people that want to borrow a lot of money, commercial guys.
Okay.
And doing business development, those type of things.
So I know they're going to want to ask this. So what's the biggest loan that you've been able to make?
I loaned the city of Moore $14 million.
All right.
To start building the station. You know who the station is? Yeah,
You know the station?
we provided the.
He works there.
My name's
He
on
gave
the
you a
wall.
job.
My name's on the wall. If you walk in and look at the plaque. But yeah, when we started that, we made the loan originally to get them started on that before the bond money kicked in.
So how much does integrity play into being a businessman at that level? And I'm specifically talking Christian ethics.
Well, I mean, think about it from your point of view. You're when you go into the bank, when you choose a bank, you're choosing somebody that every time you get paid, you're going to give them everything that you've got. I mean, you're going to get all of your money. This is what I worked for this week. This is how much I made this week. You're taking it and you're handing it to somebody and saying, this is all the money I have in the world. I want you to take care of it. So you've got to trust them. It has to be somebody that's honest. It has to be someone you know is going to keep their word. Somebody that you know is not going to rob, pilfer, steal, any of those things. So it's very important. It's probably the most important thing in my line of work. There's a bank on every corner. I don't know if you've ever driven around and counted the number of banks there are in town, but there's a bank on every corner. So there's got to be something that differentiates you between, from the other guys. Because we all offer the same things. I mean, every bank makes loans. Every bank makes, has accounts. Every bank does the same thing. So there needs to be a reason why they want to bank with me as opposed to somebody else. And I think integrity and hard work has probably gotten me farther than anything else.
Anybody have any questions? I got a bunch more, but I want to use.
Jeff, you mentioned earlier that your father passed away a little before you were 16. You were baptized around 12. but you said that you really started to become a Christian at about 18.
Mm-hmm.
What happened when you were about 18 that caused you to really delve into why you're a Christian and being a Christian?
Well, I was graduating high school, and as you get to that certain where you're independent, and I think that's probably the trigger was that independence when I realized I can't count on anybody else for really anything. I mean, I'm going to be an adult now, and I can't count, and I don't think it was even cognitive. I don't think I even really recognized the fact that I was leaning so much on my parents' faith, because that's just the way it had always been, and after that, I think that's when I realized that I was really leaning on him. And Jeff, you're an adult now. You've got to answer for yourself. And of course, I had friends in every church in town, and you have discussions with them. You talk about different things, and I had all the answers, but some of them had some pretty good answers too. Or at least convincing answers. They weren't right answers, but they were convincing, and that kind of got me thinking, okay, why do I believe what I believe? Do I really believe this, or is this just what I've been doing my whole life? And that really got me studying on why I believed what I believe. And I can tell you, it doesn't take you very long to convince, if you're looking at it with an open mind and an open heart, it doesn't take you very long to realize why you believe what you believe. But it does take some study. It does take some effort. But I think that's what it was. It was just reaching that age of you're kind of on your own now. And nobody answered for you anymore. You got to answer for yourself. And I think that's what triggered it more than anything.
I think there's a lot of us that have hit a point where it's just, I'm going to have to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
That time does come. Has there been a scripture or anything like that has helped you through these difficult times? Has there been something that has, or maybe a thought, a psalm, something?
Nah, Micah 6, what does God require but to do justice, walk humbly with your God. That's really, I think a lot of us sometimes overthink some things. We think that we have to do so many things, and we have to, but you look at that passage and it says, what's God want? Does he want, rivers of oil? Does he want all these sacrifices? He doesn't want all those things. You can't do enough,
Yes.
But what you can do is, you can love justice. You can love kindness. You can walk humbly with your God. And those are, and those are things that all of us can do. The richest and the poorest can do those things. So that one has probably helped me more than anything. When I realized that, I can't do enough. I can't be, I can't give enough. I can't do enough. Nobody can. So that's probably helped me more than anything.
That's a good one.
That passage.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few minutes ago
Mm-hmm.
that a part of your job is going to community meetings and things like that.
It is.
So when I'm reshaping my question here. Recently, you made a foray. You dipped your toes into politics.
I did.
What did you learn about that?
I learned that the biggest thing I learned is don't do it unless you really want to do it.
Well, back up. What office were you running?
I was running for mayor.
Mayor of
Okay. Yes. And the biggest thing I learned is don't run for an office unless you really, really want to do it. And while I wanted to do it, I didn't run for mayor because I wanted to be mayor. I ran for mayor because some of the and I use this term loosely, leading citizens here in town. Some of the, some of the guys that are in charge of some of our public safety and some different things like that came to me and asked me to run for mayor. And they, the Chamber of Commerce, I mean, all these different entities and groups and business owners, a lot of them, and they came and called and, we'd really like for you to do this. We really want you to do it. And that's why I did it. It wasn't that I didn't want to, but, being the mayor's never been my dream. It's not, not like I, been wanting to be the mayor for the last 30 years. So I did it because I was asked to do it. And, and if you remember, I even asked for prayers that if this is not good for me, if it's not good for the church, if it's not, whatever, then make sure I'm defeated. And I was. The First Baptist got me. Because the guy that I was running against was a member over there at the biggest church in town, and they all came out.
Everybody came out.
So,
but it was close.
Yeah, it was
close.
But I tell you, and I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I was, my faith was that God was going to take care of me, and whatever was going to be best for the city and whatever was going to be best for me is what would happen. So I trust that that's what happened.
Well, you brought that up, and I was going to kind of go there. That's where my question was leading. Before you really got too deep into it, you went forward.
I did.
And you did what you just said. You asked for prayers of the congregation, and you laid this in front of God. My question is this: is that something that you, in your opinion, we should do more of taking these things, these large decisions, and laying them in front of God?
Yeah, I don't know how people make large decisions without doing that. And to be most large decisions, you're not going to go sit in the front row and do it.
Right.
But this was a decision, and you guys are going to have these in your life where these are decisions that are going to affect all of us. Okay, so let's assume I'm elected mayor. Okay, I'm elected mayor, and I go in there and I do something stupid. Temptation gets hold of me, and I do something stupid. Well, it's not just Jeff that looks bad at that point. Who is it? It's all you guys. It's everybody.
Everyone
it's the whole congregation. It's the whole church. It's that guy's a Church of Christ guy. And it's not just our congregation. Then it becomes other. So that was kind of my deal. I wanted, not only did I want everybody's prayers, I wanted everybody to know what I was thinking about doing, so I could get their help and their support also. And I'm not talking about support by votes. I'm talking about, their support in helping me, making sure I maintain my integrity, make sure that I didn't do anything stupid, or fall into temptation.
Are you saying that people in politics do stupid stuff? I'm
saying that they certainly can.
Okay.
Yeah, they certainly can.
I
And even down to local politics, I'm telling you, it's well, I mean, you guys see it. The most popular guys at school think they can get away with anything. I mean, the one that knows that they're going to get elected class president, and it doesn't change as you get older. People don't change that much, and so they do stupid things. So that was kind of my deal. I'm not immune to temptation. I mean, contrary to popular belief, I am not immune to temptation, and I just wanted to make sure that did this happen, I didn't want to do anything that would embarrass the church.
Do you think more Christians should be more involved with politics, or is that something that we should shy away from?
Oh, I don't think we should necessarily shy away from it, but I don't know that, we need to be more involved in politics. I think, I think we should, we all have rights, that we should exercise our rights. And I think we should make our points known. But I don't, to me, making your point known comes through teaching others and showing them what you believe. I'm not out for, burning abortion clinics or, right. Things like that. That doesn't do anything. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody. Yeah. But, talking to a young lady, that's pregnant, that can help. or before she gets pregnant, talking to young men, about the consequences of doing these things. And I think we should do that. Let people know why we're against it.
And that takes educating ourselves on the
It does.
issues. So
It does. So as far as that is concerned, I think, we probably should be more involved in knowing what the issues are and knowing what's going on. But as far as running for office or being, I don't know that that's really our role, that we need to necessarily do that.
I tend to agree with you. But that being said, if I lived in Moore, I would have voted for
Well,
you,
I
but,
appreciate
you know,
that. I appreciate that. It's a good thing you didn't. I might have won.
Well, yeah.
Then-
Uh,
Where would
anybody
we be?
questions, thoughts? He's a banker.
I am a banker.
All right, so
I have a question.
yeah.
Okay.
You may have seen, do you deal with have you ever dealt with any student loans or anything in that lane that they may be running into now?
Rarely. I really, for the last almost 20 years, I've been just doing mostly commercial stuff. And student loans are now, about
It's all federal.
1995, it all went federal, so it all goes through. So even if you get one through the school financial aid office, it's still a federal loan. Really doesn't come through the banks anymore. We used to, banks used to buy those. Used to buy student loans, but we don't do that anymore.
So since we're kind of talking fiscally, financial things, you're an English guy doing banking. What advice would you give this age that is still young and is still at those early stages of starting to think about that grown-up adult life financially? What would you give them advice-wise?
The first thing I'd tell you is that
Go get a credit card?
no, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I will tell you that credit reporting agencies and financial institutions don't forget.
Yes.
They don't forget. So if you do get a credit card and you don't pay it, they don't forget that. They don't forget that, and they tell the next guy, the next guy when you go to get another credit card or buy a house or buy a car, he knows that you didn't. And really, what that does, sometimes you get lulled into the idea that it doesn't really matter, and if you go by, let's say you go over here to Express Credit Auto. You guys know where Express Credit Auto is over here on 240? Okay, you go to Express Credit Auto and you buy a car for $10,000. Okay, and you make payments to Express Credit Auto because you can't get a loan at a bank. That same car at the bank, by the time you end up paying that $10,000 car, if you finance it through me, you're going to pay about $1,200 or $1,300 for it, okay, on a $10,000 car, because you're going to finance it for 3 years. It's going to be at 5.25%, so it's going to cost you about $13,000. If you buy Express Credit Auto because you can't get a loan at a bank and you have to buy it from them and pay through them and get it there, you're going to pay them $25,000 by the time you're done for that $10,000 car. So my encouragement, don't bite off more than you can chew. If you can't make the payments, you can wait. And whatever you do, live up to your obligations, because they don't forget. They just don't forget. I also would encourage you to remember you got a long life ahead of you, and one of the things that I see, and it's a trap I think probably all of us have fallen into, all of us that are grown, is that when you move out, when you get married, you don't need all the things that your parents had. You just don't need all of them. I mean, you'll accumulate them at some point, but when you're newlywed, you don't need a TV in every room. If you got 3 kids at home, you probably do, but by that point you've grown and your income's grown, and so just live within your means, pay your obligations, and just remember that they'll nobody's going to sing your praises for paying your payments on time, but they ain't going to forget if you don't.
Very good. I think one of the one of the moments of my life that was kind of shocking was when I did graduate from college and I'm out on my own. I've got my first paychecks and I'm making money, and I wanted everything my parents had. And I had to realize that it took them 30 years
To accumulate.
to accumulate what I saw as a lifestyle. And it just took time, and that was kind of shocking.
It is shocking. It is shocking. But you know what? I didn't have anybody telling me that
Yeah.
either. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody telling me that you don't eat all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, I think my mom had a different pot or a different pan for every dish, you know, and you'll find out real quick you can cook a lot of things in one pan.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot
Especially
of,
as a guy.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things you can cook with just one pan, you know, and a toaster. But I think probably the most important, is when I was thinking about this and thinking about some of the questions that Aubrey had sent about, remaining faithful for a long time, and it, it has been a long time. I don't feel like I'm old, but I know I've been a Christian for a long time.
Yeah.
And but one of the main things, one of the things that I would encourage you guys to do as much as anything is keep relationships with other Christians. Your friends should be other Christians. And I'm not talking about Christians in the world. I'm talking about friends that believe the same thing you believe, that are going to encourage you to do the right thing all the time. I've been very fortunate. My brother and I we graduated 1 year apart, so we're a year separate. So I've kind of always had that best friend, accountability partner, the guy that'll tell you when you're screwing up and love telling you, when you're screwing up. But I would, that would be my encouragement to you. I mean, even through, Mark can, validate this, but even through my 30s and 40s, your grandpa, Dean and I, we were playing softball together 3 nights a week, all over the state. We were playing everywhere. And we had a church softball team that, we got together, we played in 2 or 3 different leagues, and we were friends, and we held each other together, and we encouraged each other. And I think that's helped me as much as anything, is always having somebody of like faith in my life. And so I would encourage you to really search, hang on to these friendships that you have. And you can hang on to them even if you marry different people and you're moving on, you can still hang on to these friendships. You can still talk to each other. The internet's great for that, but you can still do that. But that would be my biggest encouragement. We had our youth group at Central. Jim Fortune, Jimmy and I graduated together. So we were in the same class. Tom Graham, who was he was an elder at Southwest for a while, but Tom, was in the same class as we were. We had a pretty tight group of people that we kind of held each other together, held each other accountable, and encouraged each other, and we were able to to avoid some of the pitfalls that you fall into when you're alone, and you can be alone in a group of people. Trust me, you can be alone. You can be in a group of 50 people, and if they're not believers, if they don't believe the same thing you do, and understand the scriptures the same way, you're alone. You are alone, and I can tell you, being alone, you lose. And hanging around people that don't want to follow, you lose. And I think I would really encourage you to think about the fact that when the Israelites went into the promised land, what God tell them to do? Why did he tell them to get rid of all of them?
So they weren't diluted or unequally.
Because the bad influence always wins.
Yep.
The bad influence always wins. And sometimes you convince yourself that, oh, I can be a really good influence on them. And you can try and you can, but I'm telling you, even in scripture, the bad influence always wins. So, that would be my encouragement to you. Hang on to really good, close friendships. Eliminate the ones that are temptations for you. Eliminate, you don't have to be rude. You don't have to be ugly. And you can even still be friends with guys. I mean, half the guys on my basketball team were dope smoking fiends. We were friends, but I didn't hang with them.
Yeah.
I didn't hang with them because bad influence always wins, and I knew that. So just that would be my encouragement to you, to hang on to the friendships that you have and incorporate more. If you got somebody that you love that's not a Christian, teach them. Teach them. We all have those friends that we love. Teach them. So what we did. We used our softball team, our church softball team. Dave Fuller's still one of my best friends in the world. Well, we baptized Dave. He started playing softball with us. A guy named Gary Puckett, who's an attorney in California now. But, we got Gary playing softball with us and told him, we started making up rules like, how you got to come to church 3 times in a month if you're going to play, and that was, and the church didn't even care about our softball team. The elders didn't care. They didn't know anything about it. But, we'd tell them, oh, yeah, you can't play on the softball team if you're not coming to church. So, they'd start coming. Next thing you know, we're baptizing them, So use those things. If you got people that you love, teach them, encourage them, bring them along. But that would, like I said, that would be my biggest encouragement to you. Hang on to your friendships and make sure that you have friends that are Christians.
I think that's a perfect place to end. So just had the second bell. So Jeff,
Cool.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks,
Hopefully
guys.
this wasn't too hard on you.
No.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody.